Okay, so can we be honest about Sarada Uchiha's new Mangekyō Sharingan powers that we just finally got to see in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 20? Just as the manga was starting to slightly lose my interest as I discussed in a previous video, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex does something very interesting and exciting to say the least with one of the star characters, Sarada Uchiha, definitely more so looking like she might be Sarada Uzumaki down the road after this chapter, because it's been quite some time since we've seen at the end of the original Boruto manga, Boruto Naruto Next Generations, where Sarada had unlocked her Mangekyou Sharingan. I want to say it was right after Sasuke and Boruto had left the village. She was overwhelmed by the emotion of the person that she loved and cared about leaving her. All of that whole situation was just so much for her that it unlocked Mangekyou Sharingan, and it was definitely a different take on unlocking Mangekyou Sharingan. I mean, we already understood from earlier on in like the Naruto series or whatnot that the previous conditions for Mangekyou Sharingan weren't exactly what we thought they were, because we learned later on in the Naruto story that essentially in order to unlock Mangekyou Sharingan, you had to have some sort of, like a deep pain, so to speak, of like feelings and emotion. And we know that the Uchiha clan have always been notorious for being linked with their powers to their emotions. So Sarada, the way she unlocked her Mangekyou, it made sense for her character. Remember, Sarada Uchiha is not like the Uchiha of the past. She didn't grow up with an Uchiha clan to begin with. Not to mention, she grew up in a time of peace. Like the Boruto universe, the Boruto story, up until the Otsutsuki showed up, for the most part they've been living in times of peace. So while it's not as dramatic as what happened with Itachi getting Mangekyou or even Sasuke getting Mangekyou, ultimately it definitely is very fitting for the character considering the circumstances and the life that she's lived. And well, since then we really didn't get much of a glimpse into Sarada's powers or anything of that sort, because well, the Boruto story obviously ended its first part with the end of the Naruto Next Generations portion, and since the 2 Blue Vortex began, they really never delved into utilizing her powers or what she's capable of. In general, it just kind of, well, for the most part, like I said in a previous video, has been focusing in on Boruto's powers and Boruto as a character. So to get a little bit of spotlight on something as interesting and as exciting, Sarada utilizing her powers, that was something that was, well, very much so needed at this particular point. If you're not going to have the title character Boruto doing the epic stuff that he's been doing the entire story thus far, then you can use another character that is just as equally impactful and have Sarada do something great. Because there's no secret that Sarada has been one of the most interesting characters of the story anyways, even going all the way back to before the Boruto manga technically began, with the Sarada Gaiden manga that was like a 10 chapter short story that came out a few years back. Like off that manga alone, she was an interesting character. So you fast forward from then till now and it's like, okay, well, let's utilize the character that is really exciting to make things go, and boy did it go. Because in 2 Blue Vortex, they're currently right now in the midst of a battle. You got Sarada, you got quite a few different characters on the battlefield, and they're going up against, of course, the Divine Tree people. And honestly, it's quite fascinating that despite all of the people on the battlefield, it really is ultimately up to, at this particular point, Sarada to really get them out of a jam, and is largely in part due to the fact that, well, she's extremely strong, and now seeing her utilizing her powers of the Mangekyou Sharingan just is another example of, yeah, the Uchiha clan is something different. But even more so, it very much so felt extremely special for the character, the way it was utilized, the way it was explained, why she was even utilizing the power. Because on the battlefield, of course, Yodo is down and a lot of the characters pretty much can't do anything, and when Yodo is slowly talking Sarada through her emotions essentially and kind of helping her to break that wall that she has in front of her, the proverbial wall, shall I say, in regards to the fact that Sarada seemingly has been holding back on utilizing her powers due to the fact that, well, one, with the Mangekyou Sharingan, I gotta imagine that that takes a large toll on any character. We've seen in the past when Sasuke was going on a rampage and how it was really heavy utilizing that power, and Itachi, ultimately it's a really heavy power to utilize, so that gotta be something that I'd imagine was already on her conscience. But then on top of that, it seemed as though she wasn't utilizing it because she was ultimately kind of having this whole idea in her head that the only reason you can use this power is for the greater good. Other than that, don't ever use it. Although I'd argue that the greater good, regardless of what would be the fact that, hey, the future of the shinobi world hangs in the balance if we don't get rid of these divine trees. But even more so, the fact that Yodo really helped her to push a couple of different aspects. I think it was really interesting how it was portrayed that it wasn't only something of like, yes, we're on the battlefield, yes, we're fighting these crazy, powerful creatures, it's a dire situation, and that's definitely a valid reason to utilize it. But even more so, the fact that they delve into Sarada's character and one of the major aspects of what her goals are and what she feels and whatnot, her connection to Boruto, and them kind of really diving into, not only does she need to use this power because, yeah, not only could we really utilize this power right now, but even more so, it kind of dives into her whole character arc, and I think that that was very brilliantly done, that it advances her not only as a fighter, but also in her emotional aspect, and in general, it pushes her character arc along. Because of course, since the beginning, a lot of people are going to immediately assume that even before Boruto really took off, that, well, Naruto and Sasuke's, you know, kids are going to eventually, at some given point, something's going to happen there, and then slowly but surely throughout the story, you've seen little hints and inklings of Boruto and Sarada having something for each other. Then you fast forward, of course, to what we were just speaking about, the end of the Boruto Naruto Next Generations portion of the manga, and it was pretty clear that Sarada had very strong feelings for Boruto, despite the fact that there was still so much chaos going around them that you really couldn't explore it. But then even as the Two Blue Vortex manga has been going on, you've seen that pretty much the character herself has showcased and demonstrated, no, she really does have feelings for Boruto. And for sure, it's vice versa, because I mean, every time anything has gone down in the story, you've seen that Boruto immediately is there trying to save Sarada or do anything he possibly can for her. So the way that she utilized her new power in the latest chapter of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex chapter 20, utilizing the Kamui in order to send away the Iron Sand from Ryu, it was essentially a very impactful moment for the character on many different fronts. It's not only the fact that, yeah, she's utilizing a new power, and yeah, she got the Mangekyou Sharingan, like that is very big, that is very huge, but it was just really more of a special thing, the fact that she was willing to break down one of those inherently, you could even say, inner principles, essentially, of like, yo, I'm only supposed to use this for the battlefield, but when Yodo kind of put the suggestion in her mind, but what about, you know, the thing that is most special to you? And Boruto immediately came to mind. She utilized that power instantly, which once again demonstrates just truly how much she cares about Boruto and how real the love is. And it just goes very well. Sarada's elegance, and at the same time, Boruto's temperament of being just a very much so heroic figure in the story, and kind of being there and being where he needs to be at certain times, like it just all fit very well. I like that, despite the fact that, like I said, and I stand on it, the last few chapters have felt a little bit more sluggish. They ultimately utilized a different character, and if you're gonna do something interesting, you're gonna do something epic, you're gonna give a character the big win that they ultimately deserve, then let it be a character that is equally as interesting, as exciting, and as awesome as a character as Boruto, and Sarada was just that. And you gotta think that this is just the start of her powers, because at the end of the day, there's still so much more for her to learn, so much more for her to go. You go back to the Naruto story, it was less than 200 chapters into the story that Sasuke had obtained Mangekyou Sharingan, so there could still be a lot to go for the Boruto story, but regardless of what, Sarada ultimately just got a major upgrade, major power up, and was able to utilize a brand new power. Well, for her, at the end of the day, it seemingly is a form of Kamui. It could probably have its own properties as well. We don't know everything about it just yet, but Sarada Uchiha taking the big win and bringing the Boruto story to a different level, because yeah, the story was kind of losing its way for a moment, but it seems as though they're back on track, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. So I have for this one, I'm Tim. As always, people, have an awesome day. Subscribe and hit that bell to get more. Thank you so much.
Up until I look into your eyes, girl, all I feel is bliss from your smile, girl. All I feel is bliss from your laugh, girl. All I wanna see is in your eyes, girl.